and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I don't like hard wheelers.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Pit Stop. Its original title was The Winner, released in 1969, written, directed and edited by Jack Hill. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Rick. He's a drag racer who's just been paid by Grant Willard, a racing promoter, to drive for him in some figure-8 derby racing. As Rick starts to make his way up the ranks of winning, he starts to really question, is this really what he wants?
Luckily, there's a lot of turning sharp. They're going very close to the intersection. They're going through. Watch out. There's a lot of action north.
So this is a Roger Corman produced and financed, very low-budget American independent film. And I kind of stumbled across this film director about 20 years ago when I was doing a dissertation on grindhouse movies.
Wow, yeah.
And I discovered these classics such as Coffee from 1973, as well as Foxy Brown in 1974. Yeah. You know, and then looking at his other movies, including The Switchblade Sisters, which is one of the films that Tarantino highly praises.
Yeah.
There was other films such as The Swinging Cheerleaders and Spider Baby. It would look like this director would dabble in lots of different genres, and he kind of ended his career with a bit of a falling out with Roger Corman with the film Sorceress, where he had his name removed as writer-director. But Jack Hill, it's pretty amazing that a lot of these films were really hard to find 20 years ago, and just like Pit Stop, which original name was The Winner, has had a fantastic Blu-ray restoration along with a lot of this filmmaker's other films. Now, this film was finished in 1967, and it took a few years of post-production to actually get this film finished. And in '69, when they were about to release the film, Universal had just released the Paul Newman film, Winning. And so they had to change their name to Pit Stop so that they didn't, it didn't compete with it, having this very similar name. But unfortunately for Pit Stop, when it was released in '69, almost every drive-in theater in America was only screening color movies.
Oh, wow.
So if you had a black and white movie, you were not going to get shown. And so this film ended up, disappearing into obscurity because no one wanted to show it. It was an old-looking film. It looked beat up, and it wasn't looking modern. So this film was kind of defeated out the gate, really. But it's amazing now having this wonderful restoration. Just looking at this film's picture and sound quality, it actually suits the film being in black and white.
Yes. Like, I love a good classic movie. As I'm getting older, in my old age, I'm really starting to appreciate movies. I really appreciate finding a movie I've never heard of, starring people will never see in another movie, done by a director I've probably never heard of. And like, when I set up to sit down and watch this review, I'm just like, Pit Stop, Jack Hill, black and white 1969, your brain immediately goes into that place of this is going to be bad. And I read on the wiki page, it was just like, look, like Gary said, one of the failures for this movie was because it was in black and white. And yet, weirdly enough, 1968, just a year before Night of the Living Dead was released, and I'm like, wow, that movie did really well in a year before, and a year later, black and white movies are just like, nah, we're not even bothering anymore. Such a great opening for this movie. I was immediately just drawn in by Richard Davalos's Rick Bowman. He's the rebel. He's the greaser. You see him stand outside of his car with his hair. I love those old school 1950s souped up turbo monster cars. The fact that they're setting up for drag racing, and like I live in the world now that we have more Fast and Furious movies than we probably have anything else out there. And I look at this, and they're not bad. I'll go on a limb, they're not bad. Some stories go all up in the place, but you can see like fans of that would love to watch this type of movie.
Oh, hell yeah. Like, starting off with that drag race. I mean, just the
Yes.
moment when the engines are revving
Yes.
up and the tires are screeching as they take off down the road, you're just like, yeah, you know, it doesn't need all the bells and whistles of Fast and Furious. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
But just stripped down and it's raw and real here.
Yes.
And of course it doesn't go too well for the other driver who ends up plowing right through a fence and into some poor bastard's house.
That's it, yeah. And then Rick, he's being chased by the cops and he's banging away, and he's been observed by Grant Willard, played by Brian Donlevy. And Willard is, he owns a couple of race drivers. He's bought them, or they owe him money, and he's got them in these races, and that's how he makes his money back. And he's seen Rick, and he thinks Rick is the next new big thing that he wants, and so he bails Rick out, and they have this chat, and then he takes him to see the figure 8 derby racing, which I thought was great because it scared Rick. 5 minutes before, he was a cocky, take no crap kind of guy. And now he's being told, look, you owe me money and I want you to race in this.
Yeah, and those figure 8 derby races, they're destructive. There's carnage, there's metal scraping and sparks and cars being flipped and ambulances driving out.
Man, I wanted to play Destruction Derby so bad.
Hell yes. And, straight away he's still like, no, I'm not getting involved in that. That's not my kind of racing. And he's like, well, let's go to the party. Let's go to the pub and see everybody afterwards.
Yeah.
And he'd already seen Sid Haig, who plays Hawk Sidney, and he is the champion of this racetrack, this figure 8 racing. Nobody can touch him. He's so intimidating. No one even wants to scratch the paint of his car. But he is a loud mouth braggart. He's cocky. He's wide-eyed. Like the moment he gets the trophy, he's kissing the half-naked girls. He's partying. He's drinking. He's celebrating. He's sure of himself, and that is what forces Rick to go, I want a piece of that. That can be me. I'm not getting that attention with these drag races.
Yeah.
I'm getting thrown in the slammer.
Yeah.
So, actually, no, I'm in. And this is where we kind of get little insights into Rick's character. Because we don't get a full backstory or anything.
No.
But every time somebody goes to touch him, he's like, he flinches away from any human contact. He is a complete loner. But he is very self-assured. He knows what he's capable of. And I like the scenes where, he goes to get himself a car.
The mechanic.
Compete. And the mechanic's just like, well, I hear you're going to be racing for this guy and cars are going to get banged up. How about I sponsor you? You can drive my cars for free and, we split the winnings. He's like, nah.
No, I don't work for nobody.
Yeah, I'll buy the car, and if I end up wrecking the car or losing the races, I'll work for you for less than what you're offering until I pay it back.
Yeah.
I was like, so, he very much is a loner, very much is looking after himself, and doesn't want to be beholden to anybody else because he's got his sights set on being the victor.
I mean, that's what I really loved about this movie. I really loved, how the other characters were establishing this universe for us, especially this mechanic. The way he tries to convince Rick, I'll sponsor you and you can pay me back. And Rick's like, no, this is how I want to do it. And even though this deal is shitty on my end, I'd much prefer to do it this way. And then the mechanic kind of just lets him in on the information of you must be working for Willard. Yeah, he does this a few times, And you get the impression just from the way the mechanic explains it that Willard's done this a number of times. He gets a new champion, he gets them into the car, they do really well, and then he goes out and he gets another one. So then that person's in there, and it's just more money. If Willard can get his races in the top 3 spots, then he's making money back. Sid Haig as Hawk. Oh, fucking hell yeah. I mean, if there's any reason to watch this movie other than the fucking race cars, it's fucking Sid Haig. And, I know we talk about a lot like The Devil's Rejects, House of a Thousand Corpses, all of his scary horror stuff. I liked him in Galaxy of Terror, weird sci-fi movie. Seeing him in this was just so good to see him actually act, in something kind of realistic. And there was just so much confidence coming from him in certain sequences. Like when he goes dancing, I dance like that. I dance like that, Sid. That's how I dance too. And now I'm going to do it so much more because Sid Haig fucking did it too.
The long races here at the track. Get on Bowman. He may smash him. Up and over in Bowman.
So the first couple of races that Rick enters, they really don't go too well. I mean, the first race he's in, he ends up in a crash and then ends up in a punch-up with one of the drivers because obviously he doesn't want to crash and now he has to work for the mechanic. But he starts to get some really good ideas, and I love the way that this movie kind of slipped the montages in. Just like he's got to work on his car now and he's getting all these ideas. Well, if I reinforce the metal here and I do this there...
I really liked the montages of the destruction derbies of the figure eight racing.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, few people have said, "Oh, it's clearly just stock footage. This low budget film couldn't afford that." But no, they actually went to these locations and filmed the real deal.
What? So the actors are actually in the car going?
No, because the Jack Hill actually found out when they started filming that Sid Haig at this time did not know how to drive a car.
Yeah.
So no, he's not actually driving in any of the scenes. They actually used a very cheap and very improvised form of rear projection to give the illusion, and I was very impressed for a late 60s movie to have very good or very competent rear view projection where it's almost seamless. I mean, there's a few instances where you'll see Rick driving and and he had a rear view mirror so that he could look at the projection behind him to see when the cars go around the corner so he can actually turn the wheel.
Nice.
But it's very slightly delayed, but I was like, but it's actually very good. I think it's because it's a black and white film as well. It's seamlessly incorporated.
Yeah, I felt that as well. I mean, when I was watching the racing on the figure eight, I was just like, there's no way they could get the actors out on here.
No,
it's
that was
just
the real...
so dangerous. You'd have insurance, you'd have safety problems. When you edited it with then the actors in the car, I was really intensely looking, and I'm like, all right, yes, it's being projected on the back screen. And there was a moment my brain was like, oh man, that's really quite shit. I kind of wanted them to be in the racing. And then I'm like, well, what's the difference to CGI or green screen like we got nowadays? There's absolutely no difference. The actor is what supposed to be paying attention to, and the way that they react to then how it's edited to crashes and turns and things like that. I mean, watching Sid Haig do his racing, even though he's not actually on the race, but how angry he looks, then edit it with him crashing into people and smashing them out of the way. I was so fucking hyped.
Oh yeah, no, I'm like, again, to the director who edited the film as well and even edited the sound and everything else. He did a lot of roles on this film, and the racing scenes are edited almost, in my opinion, to perfection. It's all of the high octane smashes and crashes. And, and despite, like, in the real world, when there's a single car crashed or a single car flipped, the race is stopped, ambulances out there, drivers taken out, cars taken care of.
Yeah.
And then the race continues. Obviously, with the film, like, there's crashes happening all over the place, the race does not stop.
No.
But, if you're watching, you will notice as the race continues, the crashed cars they're not on the track anymore. So the way it's been edited is obviously a lie.
Yeah.
But in terms of the pacing of the races, between the footage of the crashes to the shots of the interior of our two main characters reacting to each other and to the crashes are very well timed. It just gives you that adrenaline, like you just said. So the editing here is really, really well done.
Bowman is like a neutron. The third time out on the track, he's in the 198 car and he's doing a job of shoving them clear. He come out like a loser.
So Rick realizes he needs a little bit more help to actually try to win races, or he's literally not going to be able to pay Willard back. And he meets like this kind of oldie style racing guy at the side of the road. Like, they didn't even really give him a name. He basically says to Rick, like, look, I've been doing this for years. I can teach you some stuff. And so him and Rick just go out and they start practicing the figure eight. So then Rick takes some of those skills, back into the race with him. And you get this great bit with Sid Haig where he's gone out and he's bought himself this new car. He's going to be the championship driver for Willard. Nobody better scratch the fucking paintwork on this car or you're all going to get it. And so Rick's just like, I want to smash that car up. I want to turn it over.
Got his hands full. Bowman is gaining on him and gaining on him. He's crowding him. Bowman is crowding him.
And he does.
Yes. I mean, you kind of felt like he needed to do it because that's what his character's supposed to do.
Well, you're also rooting for him at this point. You kind of want to see him succeed. He's not come across as a bad guy.
Yeah.
You know, so he's driven, literally, to win and overcome this, this antagonist who has been very unpleasant towards him and almost everybody around him. And Rick has even stolen his girlfriend.
Well,
Jolene, who's played by Beverly Washburn, who I kind of recognized from Star Trek. The original series, she was in one episode, episode where they go to a planet and they all start aging rapidly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in fairness, Jolene does make it clear that she's not with anybody.
True.
But she is drawn to Rick. I mean, he's that character, of course, he's the bad boy and he's winning at the moment. So she starts to get with him, but you can kind of also tell that Rick, he's not fully into her. He's wanting more. He's getting greedy now. And after dealing with, they have this hell of a sequence after he takes out Sid Haig's car, where he takes Jolene out on a date, and then Sid Haig fucking beats the shit out of him and destroys his fucking car.
With an axe.
Yeah!
And it's an extended sequence. Like, he literally goes to town on the front, the hood, the boot, the tires, everything gets smashed. I mean, when you get the wide shot afterwards, you're just like, God damn.
God damn, man, you were fucking angry. Like, I was worried he was going to do something to Jolene, but he just kind of looks at her and then he just leaves it and walks away.
Yeah.
And what's really funny after that is that, Rick doesn't actually cause any issues after that. Like, he ends up at the hospital, he's got his arm in a cast, he's got his head in a bandage, he calls up Willard and he says to him, like, look, I may have had a few drinks last night. Doesn't tell him that he's got concussion and he shouldn't be racing. The doctor's like, don't race. And even Willard says to Hawk at this point, like, I've just spoken to Rick, and Hawk's like, oh, what did he say? Oh, nothing, he's got a bit of a hangover. So it's kind of weird that you kind of see Hawk kind of happy, weirdly, that he hasn't been dobbed in. That Rick's taken this like a man. But then you get this really weird sequence from Willard where he says to Hawk, like, oh yeah, I'm just going to replace you. I don't need you. And Hawk's like, yeah, whatever. And Willard's like, oh no, I don't mean that. I'm actually really your friend, Hawk. And I sat down and I'm like, wow, Willard is the bad guy in this whole movie. He's such a fucking asshole.
He's the one dangling the carrot in front of them.
Yes.
But these race car drivers, they want that success. They want to reach the heights. And, at the midpoint of the film, we find out that there is, an actual race, a more professional race, more highly recognized in the racing industry, that only a few racers, the elite racers, will actually qualify to be able to race in.
Well, that's it.
And Willard's only allowed to submit so many racers to it. And so they're kind of gearing themselves up to go against this other, more well-known race car driver who's doing the rounds right now to test out his new car. And also to see kind of what like the competition is out there.
We have George Washburn playing Ed McLeod, and Ed is Willard's like top racer. And you've also got this other racer coming as well, Sonny Simpson, who, everybody's in awe about, but everybody wants to beat. And so you have that little time trial thing of them trying to get the best time as fast as they can. You have like the confrontation between Hawk and Sonny. And he's trying to rile him up because people have heard that if Sonny gets riled up, that he can't focus on the races. And you also get this moment where like Rick goes to see Ed McLeod and he walks into the garage. I really loved the camera work in there. It was this kind of up in the air shot of just watching Rick walk around the mechanic station and then get to the room where he thinks Ed is working, and it's not Ed, but it's his wife Ellen.
Played by Ellen Burstyn,
Yeah.
who I recognise as the mother from Requiem from a Dream, because I'll never forget
really?
her. Yes.
Wow, I kind of feel a bit awkward now thinking she looked hot in that mechanic outfit, knowing full well that she goes off to talk to her fridge. But anyway, I mean, she was great in this movie. She's kind of the new love interest. Like, Rick is really taken back, not only by how kind of beautiful she is, loved the way that she looked, but also how good she is with cars. You know, she's a really exceptional mechanic. They've got this new engine going on. But as she later explains to Rick, it's like Ed doesn't see her. All he sees is the car and the racing. And like 3/4 of the way through the movie, you have this really weird like sand buggy moment.
Yeah, I literally, like, it's very rare that I write a note down saying worst scene in the movie.
Yeah.
That got my attention. Worst scene in the movie.
What made it a worse scene?
It's devoid of anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally goes from day to night, and we just watch these guys having fun, riding around in these dune buggies, across the sand.
Yeah.
And they have like a little party, a fire pit at the end, and it's just like.
I think it's a generational thing. They used to do that.
Yeah,
back
but
then
it was
with
so
cars and
long-winded,
shit.
and
Yeah.
the music in the film has also been fantastic up until this point. The band, the Daily Flash band, and it's kind of like a jazzy, more blues kind of music, but very psychedelic as well.
Yes.
Really fit the mood of the film incredibly well. And interestingly, the band members also said, well, that wasn't actually us. We don't actually know who performed that. Maybe it was some stand-ins, or it's just a weird. They were all on acid, clearly, and just so bits of music were used, and they got
the 60s.
They got credited. It was a short-lived band anyway. But yeah, the whole dune buggy scene just went on and on and on, and I was just like, okay, like the racing car stuff is got an energy to it. This doesn't, and and the momentum of the film just. It stalled for me a little bit there.
Yeah, it kind of led to a sequence where like. So Rick is kind of fancying Ellen. He's been shooting her these looks, and she's been catching him and shooting him these looks back as well. And I really didn't want the two of them to get together because I didn't know the Ed McLeod character well enough to not like him. I just didn't think them two getting together would be a good idea. And then they're at these sand dunes, and Rick goes to speak to Ellen when she's walked off on her own. She explains to him, like Ed doesn't see me. He only sees the cars. He only sees the racing. And then kind of Rick just kind of throws himself at her. And she doesn't fight him off or anything. They kind of just make out. And then it cuts to like the next day. And like that sequence would lead on to a sequence where Ed is nervous about the upcoming race. Rick has managed to get himself into the race by taking out Hawk, so now he's there to cover Ed. Ed is supposed to win, and Rick is supposed to hold back anybody who's going to try to overtake him. But Willard even explains to Rick, I don't care who wins.
As long as it's one of my cars.
As long as it's one of my cars. And you're like, fuck you, Willard. Fuck you. I'm trying to like these people, and you're not making it easy by telling them, look, I want you all to slit each other's throats as long as I win at the end. But I did like this little sequence where Ed sat there in the dark and he's smoking, and Ellen says to him, like, are you nervous? And he's like, look, I'm nervous about tomorrow. And he says to her, like, look, after the race tomorrow, let's just get away. Let's go start a family. Let's do something with our lives. And so you kind of see in Ellen's face, like, whatever happened with her and Rick, did they have sex? Did they just kiss? I don't know. Did she have feelings for him and now she's regretting it? I'm not entirely sure. But there was just something. There was some kind of emotion there, which I was really impressed about. But then we get to the final race. And it's Rick and it's Ed. And they're bombing around the tracks. And Rick causes Ed to crash.
Causes him to spin out. And
Like intentionally.
Intentionally,
He fucking takes him out.
Rick wants to win.
Yeah.
You know, he wants to be the winner. But inadvertently, another car then collides with Ed's, spun out car.
Yeah.
Which causes some severe whiplash. You know, the ambulance crew is out there. They're telling him not to get out of the car, but he's like, no, I'm going to walk to the ambulance myself.
Fine, yeah.
And then we find out when Rick goes to the hospital where Ed's been taken, that he died from a broken neck.
Yeah.
And Willard says, yeah, he probably would have lived if he had just stayed in the car instead of walking to the paramedics. But now he's passed.
Yeah. But I need a new racer. We've still got races to do, and I need a new racer. Do you want to be that racer, Rick? And Rick looks around the room, and it was a really good shot because he looks at Hawk, who, Sid Haig. He started the movie as this real confident kind of up in your face, don't fuck with me kind of attitude, and he's just been knocked down as the movie's gone on, and now he's got to the point where one of his buddies has died, and he's not even being asked, and he kind of looks really upset about it, and then, Rick's already spoken to Jolene, and she's in shock. That Ed's dead. Ellen is even worse off because they were going to start a family, and Rick's like, yeah, let's go, Willard. Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, the film has a very abrupt ending. They get in the car and drive off, and it's a single credit screen, end of movie. And you kind of sat there like, at first, the film forces you to pause for thought, to think about what's happened.
Yeah.
And as the film's ended, immediately I was unsatisfied with the ending, but I needed the film to just resonate a little while, to reflect upon it, and I find it fascinating that when you see it's just following Rick from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
And how driven he is, obsessed with winning. That in my interpretation, he has literally sold his soul.
Totally.
To achieve that, which he does have. But then, look at the damage that has been done. Nobody likes him.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be with him.
But he doesn't care.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't care. That's what I got from the end of this movie. As soon as he walked out and he got in the car with Willard, I was like, I'd spent most of this movie trying to like this guy, and yet the movie gave me no reason to.
It's like he swapped places with Hawk,
Yeah.
And Hawk, defeated at the end, has what I would conceive as maybe a realization that he was the bad guy, but now he's been brought down. He's got perspective and realizes that Rick's now going to go off and become what he was at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that when you think about it and you put it together, you're like, that really, really works. Then when you rewatch the film again and you watch Rick slowly, descend into that madness of obsession.
Yeah.
And it's really, really well done.
But it's like what you said. We don't know where Rick's come from. So, maybe he started with nothing and now he's getting so much that he's getting greedy. But maybe he had something, he lost it all, and now he's trying to get it all back. Maybe he was always this asshole guy and he fucked with everybody's life just to get to where he was. Or maybe it was a new thing for him and he didn't know what he was doing. I don't know. It's just awesome.
Well, Iain, what were your favourite scenes from Pit Stop?
Oh, man. All of the racing sequences, all of the footage from the figure eight racing, I absolutely fucking loved. It had me on the edge of my seat. The smashing of the cars. This is '69. They've got no safety harnesses. They barely got fucking seatbelts, people. The cars are held together by fucking good intentions and spit, and here they are driving around at high speeds, trying to smash the fuck out of each other so they can win. It was awesome. There was a part of me that was like, yeah, I want to do fucking destruction derby driving. And then when the film finished, I was like, nope, no, not for me. I loved a lot of the sequences with Sid Haig. Always loved Captain Spaulding, really. Think he's been a great actor, and I'm really glad that I get to go back and watch some of the classic stuff. Maybe he didn't get the praise that he should have back then. People didn't realize how good it was. You don't see it until you step away from it. But he was great in this. Like we said, he starts off so confident, dancing. He's got the women, he's got the trophies. He's just doing so well. And as the movie goes on, he gets knocked. That moment where he smashes the fuck out of the truck with Rick and Jolene in there. I honestly thought Rick was going to get an upper hand and beat him. But then he gets knocked out. He gets concussed, and Rick's just left on the floor. And I'm like, how is this supposed to make me feel? Do I feel like Hulk is the bad guy? And I'm thinking, no, Hulk's been fucked over at this moment. It was just so great. Up until the point where he got beat. Hulk got beat by Rick, and he says to him like,
"You drove a hell of a race, Rick."
Yeah.
And he says, "Thanks." And he says, "I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can I buy you a beer?"
Yeah.
And Rick says, "Yeah." That's actually my favorite scene in
That
the film.
was so
because
good.
it like, you know, the balance had shifted at that point.
Yeah.
And Hawk's not a through and through villain.
Yeah.
He was the antagonist up until this point, but the respect has come there as, these two that are obsessed with what it is that they love doing.
Yeah.
And the fact that they could become friends after this is and of course, just a complete transformation for watching Sid Haig be this massive, larger-than-life character.
Yeah.
To be at this level, then almost on the same level as Rick.
Yeah.
It was bravo, and it was such a tilt moment in the film. That's my favorite scene.
I thought it was great as well when Hawk was talking to Willard, and Willard's talking about, like, he just kind of lets these little things slip, like. He doesn't really care about Hawk or Ed or Rick. He cares about who's driving his car and that the cars are winning. And Hawk's getting this realization while he's trying to work. He's trying to work for Willard. But, he's thinking to himself, is this all I've got? Is this all I am? I'm just going to be your lackey for the rest of my life. I just thought it was outstanding acting from Sid Haig. And like I said, like the racing sequences, especially the last one where Rick wins, like... that realization when he gets out the car and nobody's there, and everybody who should be there to congratulate him is at the hospital with Ed. I wouldn't say the final hospital sequence is my favorite sequence, but I did love just having all of the major players that we'd seen in the movie in this one room, and each one of them is just emotionally different to everybody else. I mean, the women are upset, one guy's dead, Hawk's not saying anything, and Willard's just like, let's get back to business.
He's got his winner.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, that was a great moment. So, because I've already said my main favorite scene, but there was one other line of dialogue that I really liked, and it was when they were out on the sand dunes, and he looks out and he's just like, "Do you think there's a place in the world where you won't find an old beer can?"
Yeah, I love that.
That was a great line of dialogue. Yeah. And of course, again, just going back to the actual. A highlight, visible highlight of the movie was all of the destruction of these wonderful classic cars just being smashed to pieces. Well, Ian, do you recommend Pit Stop?
I totally recommend Pit Stop. I'm a sucker for old school movies with people that I've never heard of in them, and I just love just looking deeply into the movie and trying to pick it apart and noticing that, in 69 they were doing as much effort as they can to get all these races edited together, get these actors to do what they can. If you are a fan of movies with fast cars and racing, if all you've done for the last 10 years is watch Fast and Furious movies and think there is nothing better than those types of movies, watch Pit Stop. Or The Winner, or whatever the fuck it's called, wherever you can fucking find it. It's amazing.
Yes, absolutely. Recommending Pit Stop. This, for me, was a really engrossing and compelling film about obsession and being hyper-focused on achieving victory and winning, but losing your soul along the way. Richard Davalos played the opportunistic loner to perfection. Plenty of subtlety in his performance as his darker side comes to the forefront. Sid Haig stole the show, though.
Totally.
As the major antagonist in loud-mouthed, wild performance was very convincing, along with his more reserved and toned-down scenes. The action, the grating steel, the crashes, the races, the figure-8 derbies were truly riveting and very exciting, and absolutely a highlight of the film. The cinematography was fantastic, capturing all the crashes, and the restoration of this film to Blu-ray is just as magical as the flawless editing in bringing this film back to life, ensuring a wider audience can experience this cult movie. The film has a great sound, lots of roaring engines, clashes of metal on metal, and a brilliant soundtrack by the Daily Flash. The Blu-ray also has many special features with commentary tracks, interviews, and a look at the restoration process. Truly a film collector's prize. And for anyone who wants to know more about the making of this stellar, low-budget, independent film, it's a crash-orama. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.